Hey everyone, and welcome to another home theatre update. And today is quite a big one. So as you can see, the new seats have arrived and there's been a few changes with some of the speakers as well. So first thing we'll do is we'll just come around. So these, obviously I've already posted it on the community post, as well as some of the YouTube Shorts videos that I actually posted on the seats as well. So it is the row of 3 Valencia Tuscany Premier Edition. And then at the back, I went for the row of 3 console edition. Once again, Valencia Tuscanys. I'll have separate review videos on the actual seating themselves. Probably do one video on each. One video on the normal row of 3, and then a separate video on the actual console edition, because obviously they're quite different. But just to give you an idea in terms of why I actually went for Valencias. Firstly, no, these aren't free. I've paid for these out of my own pocket, and yeah, I've got a little bit of a discount because of the time of the year. Obviously over Christmas time, I did place the order last year because of bank holidays and other things. These actually came through, I believe it was last Thursday when they actually came through. So it was around about the 4th or 5th, I think. I think that's the date that they actually arrived, for 4th or 5th of January. The reason I went for Valencias rather than some other alternatives I was actually looking at, because obviously this is quite an investment, and this is basically going to be the last sort of update in terms of hardware for the actual home theatre. But the reason I went for these rather than some alternatives, which I'll post in the actual main review video, is because I actually wanted something that was actually real leather. I've had PU leather or fake leather in the past, and I've had really bad experiences with even when they weren't used. So in this room in particular, before obviously I did all of this and we now make use of this room fully, I'd say not even a day goes by where we haven't actually watched something on the big screen. But in the past, this room didn't used to get used as much, and what would happen is the 2 sofas that were there and there, the leather just started peeling up on them. So I didn't want to have that experience again. Secondly, I wanted something where I knew I was going to be getting something quality, something that's going to last, essentially. Just judging by the like probably first 4 or 5 days worth of usage I've had with these, the build and everything seems pretty solid. There were a few little teething problems, a few little niggles, a little bit of damage that probably just came about from the actual shipping itself, and Valencia are sorting that all out for me. So that's why I'm not going to show any of that, because it doesn't really affect the product itself, the usage or anything like that. I want to get all of that sorted out before I post the reviews. Alongside obviously the seating, the next biggest thing or biggest change has been the rear speakers. So initially what I did was I had that row the console centered similar to how I had these seats here. So the problem I've got at the moment is because the door opens inwards, I needed to actually shift them across slightly to give clearance. The door is going to get switched, so it will actually eventually open outwards rather than opening inwards, and then obviously that will resolve that issue. I don't actually need these as far over as I've set them. I've literally just done that just to give a little bit of extra clearance, and also just to see how much space I'm left with in the room. This isn't actually all the way against the wall, probably about an inch gap just there, and I have tested it, so these have been set to where they can actually fully recline. I believe it's around 6 inches that you have to actually leave in this gap here in order for them to fully recline. What I did do was I raised up the rear speakers, and the main reason for that is when I'm actually sat in my main listening position, so this is obviously my seat, the center one, what I was finding was, because they're so low, unless I reclined, I wasn't really getting much sound coming out of those rear speakers. So for that reason, I chose to actually raise the rear speakers up. Ideally, I would have wanted everything at ear level, but you just end up with too much of that sound blocked out. I was a little worried about how the tweeter was going to perform, obviously with it being much higher. In another video, what I'll do is I'll take all the grills off so you can actually get an idea in terms of how they actually sit. But originally everything was level with that speaker there, so obviously the front stage has to be a little lower because I am using ultra short throw. All of my surround channels were at the same level previously. Now, like I say, it's not ideal. I didn't want to raise the rears up that much, mainly because I didn't want to actually interfere with the Atmos channels. But where they are, it's high enough to where it'll project over the seats, even if you've got them in their normal position. So even if you've got them straight up and you're not reclining them, obviously if you do recline them, then you do get more sound coming through. In terms of the actual seating, in terms of how high the seat back is, the sound isn't as good as it was with the previous setup, with the normal Cities setup, because obviously you have got something behind you. But when that sound plays and when it's actually directed, what I tend to do is, the way I actually set it is, I tend to have the headrests forward anyway, because I actually have it more set to my shoulders and lower neck. And generally that means that your ears aren't blocked, so you're not actually blocking out all of the sound, as tends to happen whenever you go to the movie theaters or the cinema. What I actually find, all of my recent experiences in the actual cinema itself, is that you don't actually get any sound from behind you. You get side surround, but you don't actually get anything coming from behind you, because it's physically impossible, because the seat back itself is so high. So that's one thing that I was kind of worried about. Luckily, it's not affecting that. Obviously, I've not run room calibration since the new seats have arrived. I've only had them for maybe 4 or 5 days now, so I do need to run room calibration once again. Obviously, I've raised the rear speakers anyway, so that's something that will need correcting in the room calibration anyway. Other additions, so you might have seen this also posted on the community post as well as Instagram as well. So that is the dock for the Best Joy Super Remote. Now, this remote has actually had a firmware update since I last posted my video, and it's actually fixed one of the biggest issues with the remote, which was the Bluetooth disconnecting. Now, it still does it still will disconnect, but it doesn't do it anywhere near as much, and it will automatically reconnect for the most part. Occasionally it will completely, especially on the Zedu, whenever I'm using the Z9X, occasionally, I'd say maybe once out of every 10 times I use it, it will disconnect and it just won't reconnect. I still have the infrared remote setup on that as well, so I can basically just use that, go into settings and reconnect the Bluetooth. But for the most part, it's performing a lot better. And obviously the dock just makes it fixes the biggest sort of issue that I had. Now, you might notice that I have actually got another charging cable still there, and that's because of this thing. So I'll have a video coming on this. This is also a Best Joy product, and that little charging cable there is actually for that, because I was actually doing some testing on that. So I'll have a video coming on that soon. But yeah, seats got tables for every seat, and then obviously your console edition does convert into tables as well, so each person has cup holders there as well as there. But yeah, I'll post all of this in the actual main review video. You do have LEDs on all on the seats. They do have that same issue where it does reflect onto the screen if you open them whilst a movie is playing. So what I'll do is just show you the actual LEDs and how they're angled. Now, one thing to note is, the reason I'm having to push it down is the seats aren't really designed to be reclined without any weight on them. You might actually see it in some videos that people post where when the seat reclines, it actually covers your controls. That doesn't actually happen when you're sat on them. That only happens when there's nobody on it, because basically it needs weight in order for it to actually recline in the position it's meant to. So if you do, like me, I saw a few videos of various different seats where it basically covered the controls, and yeah, that's not something that you need to worry about once they're actually in use. But yeah, so that is where the LEDs are located, and the solution I'm probably going to end up going with is just cutting them off here and placing them back here. So rather than shining forwards, they'll just shine up. Now, on my carpet, obviously right now I've got the lights on. Yeah, so it is one button return, so you just hold the close button and it fully closes up, just charging up some extra LEDs, LED lights, spotlights from the actual USB port. As you can see, it does give a little bit of a glow, but because of how thick my carpet is, you don't actually get that much of a glow from these anyway. That one almost looks like it's covered up to the point where yeah, my carpets aren't the best for showing off these, simply because the carpet pile is so thick. If I just turn off the main light and then kill these, as you can see, in the dark they will shine quite a bit. And then if I just recline one, you'll see how much light it actually casts. And obviously at the moment, I do have other LEDs on in the room as well, but as that's going back down, you can see on the AVR just there how much light it actually casts. So yeah, in its original position, it's not ideal. It's not really set up in the way that you'd want it. Just get some extra lighting switched on. But yeah, the video will probably show the leather really shiny. Obviously right now I've got some really bright lights just so then you can actually see something in this room because it's so dark. They're not overly shiny, but they're not as matte as the luxury edition seats either. So those ones are obviously twice the money almost, for each type of seat. So you're talking a lot more money, you're talking a lot more expensive, but these for what they are, really comfortable. As I say, I'll post more about those in the actual video itself, for the review videos. But yeah, that's all the updates. A little bit of tidying up to do. So originally I was going to actually run some conduit up this section here. What I ended up doing in the end was I just went along with some of the cable covers, and basically this is like a Velcro tie. You're meant to actually use that to wrap the cables with, and obviously because of my sort of paneling, it actually works out perfect. And the reason I went with this rather than some extra conduit or trunking is because that's a full panel, so I didn't need to actually cut it. So I could actually, where I'd taken one off these ones in order to relocate it, this actually gave the perfect location to basically just take that one off there and stick it underneath. I did have to trim a little bit off the top, but yeah, it's fine. There will be an extra piece going there, and then I may now finally finish off that corner as well. That's not urgent. Obviously this is quite intricate to cut around, and whilst this is reasonably easy to cut ends off, it's not so easy to actually cut out in the middle like that. So I'm gonna have to make some sort of a stencil or something in order to actually get that right. But yeah, it looks a lot more obvious right now because of how bright these lights are. If you look at under normal light, and obviously once the lights are off, you're never going to see any of this anyway. So yeah, those two were obviously raised up. They are actually now level. Previously, you'll remember that the left one, the rear right speaker, actually ended up a lot lower. So that's actually one thing that has been sorted. I did go directly in line with Dolby Atmos spec. So what you do with Dolby Atmos spec is your rears are in line with your left and right channels essentially. So if you did have any front wides, your wides would be outside the line of your rears surround speakers. So they're basically in line with the tweeters on the actual front sound stage. So basically that matches Dolby Atmos spec. I have found that obviously if you've got a similar setup to this, then you definitely want your side surrounds in front. Don't follow Dolby Atmos spec as far as your side surrounds, because what happens is if you put those behind, either at 90 degrees or 100 degrees, which is the Dolby Atmos spec, then what you'll find is if somebody is sat in that end seat, you will not hear anything. So by having your seating slightly further behind rather than in front, it means that you do actually get some side surround coming from both sides. That's a lot better than having it set to Dolby Atmos spec. So everything else is Dolby Atmos spec. My Atmos speakers are, my rears are, my fronts are, just the side surrounds. And I believe it was Audioholics that I actually saw a video where he actually recommended, I think it's Gene Del Solo, is it? I think that's his name. And he actually gave his opinion in terms of why he thought that, yeah, you're better off having your side surrounds in front rather than behind, and I couldn't agree more. If I had those further back, which is, if you remember, I did actually mention that in one of my previous videos, I don't think I'd be happy with it. I would have ended up having to move it forward again. So I'm glad that I didn't actually end up moving those, because it does obviously give you better side surround by having it that way. Now the final thing is, I'll just give you my point of view in terms of, that's probably as close as I can get it to where my normal seating position is. Obviously the benefit of having the reclining seats with the headrest adjustment is when you recline it, you can actually use that to support your neck, and you'll always be viewing the actual screen rather than looking up at the ceiling. So yeah, I will have more videos coming on the home theater, as well as I'm going to be doing a full home theater tour, just basically going through all of the equipment and everything individually. So that'll be a much longer video. I just wanted to post one of these quick update videos because it has been a while. Over Christmas and New Year, I just needed a break. I'd done so many videos towards the end of last year, I just needed some time off. Now I'm back, and hopefully we'll have a lot more content for you. So if you haven't already done so, please do subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos. And I really appreciate if you could give this video a thumbs up. And until the next one, thanks very much for watching.